Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Hi everybody, I'm Tanika Myers, co-founder of Baggio.
I'm Corey Myers, co-founder of Baggio. Husband, she slays the wife. That's the way. What is Baggio? Let's just start off with that. Baggio is a content management data solution, which is a lot of words to me, that we have built a system to let you know what's in a container, when something's running low, et cetera, et cetera. We think the greatness of Baggio is that we can apply this concept to nearly any bag in a consumer application, as well as we can use it for inventory management, resource management in a commercial application, which has been an interesting pivot for us most recently. With that being said, I think we'll spend some time just to kind of think about, just talking about how we came up with the concept. And then we look forward to questions and everything.
So how it started, a couple years ago, we have three beautiful children. And a couple years ago, we went to a wedding out of town on a beach with our three kids. And so we grabbed the diaper bag and we were running a little bit late. We run down to the beach from the hotel was a drive to the beach, first of all. Running to the beach, get there. And then as babies do, she had a blowout, right? And so we go into the diaper bag so we can change her, and we don't have a diaper or wipe in sight. And nor did we have a change of clothes. And what we had in the bag was completely irrelevant, like toys and, unnecessary stuff. So we had just grabbed the wrong bag. We grabbed the toy bag, not the essentials bag. When we got down to there, we're on a beach. There are no diapers on the beach. So we had to leave the wedding. We missed the entire thing. We were in Target changing the baby, getting wipes, new dress, the whole nine. It was the worst scenario it could be is what it was. So, frustrated with my husband because it was likely his fault. I said, come on, we've got to find a better way to do this. It has to be some way that we would have known that there were diapers in that bag as opposed to little Legos or whatever was in there. And so we looked for it on Amazon or wherever, Toys R Us, and we couldn't find anything. And I said, that's kind of odd. There's smart everything. So let's just, Corey is an IP attorney. I said, why don't you, search around a little bit and see if that's a patented idea. And he did. It wasn't. And out of that, Baggio was born.
That's right. We literally, okay.
No, I was going to say, I think you mentioning Corey's background in education in IP is important. Share with us just real quickly your respective backgrounds.
Well, I am a CPA. I have my undergrad in accountancy from Morgan, and then I got an MBA at Hopkins. And what I do as my day job, I'm a CPA each day, so I handle all the finances.
And as Tanika mentioned, I'm an IP attorney. So by day, I fight in IP litigations over patents a lot. It just came from a case in Texas a couple months ago, which is always fun. So I'm an in-house counsel at a major technology company. And prior to going to law school, I worked for IBM for about 7 years as a software engineer. So that's my background.
Okay. All right.
So.
Oh, I do want to point out that when we invented Baggio, of course, Corey handled all of the IP, and we are fully patented. And, it was free labor for me.
Okay, so I have a question for you. You went out, you did what entrepreneurs do. You tried to find something, wasn't there. Without sharing the secret sauce behind your patented technology, what what is the technology and how is it different than, say, RFID or some of the other stuff that's on the market that may be considered similar to the uninitiated?
Sure. So I'll take that. As I said, Baggio is a content management data solution. So we really look at the entire system. What's on the market today, as you mentioned, are a lot of RFID tags. You guys may have seen a company called Tracker Bravo. You may have seen a company called Tile, which is actually in stores in Best Buy probably today. Our paradigm shift is that we think that people don't want to actually individually tag items forever. Their bet is that not only will you buy it, but you'll buy it again because those tags generally, they're built to expire, so you have to re-up every so often. We want to literally disrupt the bag market and put our smarts into each and every bag on the market. We see every bag company as our strategic partner, essentially, going forward. So that's how we're different. We literally put in sensors within each pocket, and I can show you that in a general sense. We put in sensors into each pocket, and in our prototype right now, we're able to send via Bluetooth a signal that basically tells you in either an analog fashion, which here for soft goods, in this just for demo, we have Pampers in here. We can actually normalize the size of the pocket and figure out what percentage of this pocket is full, and thereby tell you how many Pampers are missing or whatever the soft good may be. And for more hard items here, rigid items, we have a binary sensor in here that can tell you how many times this pocket has been opened or closed and can send a signal to your smartphone app. So we're really excited about that, and we think that's our differentiator. No one is putting this type of technology into a bag such that you can just pick up your bag like you normally do. We're not asking you to buy anything else. Just it's in your bag. Hence Baggio, we put the smart into your bag. And as I mentioned before, we're patented. So part of our secret sauce is the great thing that we've added is that we think it's really important to get this information to consumers in a timely fashion. So we're able to kind of tell where you are if you're leaving kind of a home location, et cetera, and do a status check of the pockets at that time and send it out to your phone, such that you're not at the office when you figure out that you forgot something. You can figure it out when you're in your garage before you leave.
Right. Once you leave, once the phone and the bag get a certain number of feet away, it'll ding you and let you know that you don't have the bag. And if you happen to have the bag and don't have your phone, it also will ding you and say you don't have your phone.
And then one other thing from a technical aspect or I guess market aspect, we see this as not only helpful from just kind of informational on the individual user side, consumer side. Great thing about Baggio and the content management solution aspect of it is we also have a backend that we can push out information to a user. So we see in a consumer perspective partnering with retailers such as Target or Walmart or whatever and saying, hey, there's a sale in a particular item that you use in your bag. Why don't you come out here? And we can push those types of notifications out and content out to the consumers themselves. And from an inventory management perspective on the commercial side, we think kind of it's wide open with the type of information you can send out to trucks and to folks that are actually out in the workplace that may need additional information. So,
I have a question.
Sure.
Let's go back to going to the beach and getting the bag of the toys versus the bag, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you'd had it all working then, would there have been some step you take before you leave the house that you even sync up or even check, or what? Could you just kind of walk through the small steps or as few as there may be, so that even if you had this system, you leave the house and it believes you intended to take the toys or not?
Well, so you tell your phone, your app, it'll be a Baggio app. You tell it what you want it to know about it. I.e., if I said I want to make sure I have the Pampers, the wipes, the
change of clothes.
change of clothes and the bottles, right.
That kind of thing.
It would let me know that I didn't have one or all of those things. Or it would tell me that I'm running low of those things in particular. So, and plus, this right now is designed to be one app per one bag. Eventually, it will grow, as it gets to next gen, it'll grow, and maybe you can have a network of bags, but right now it is one phone, one bag.
Right.
Okay. Now, you talk about the sensor technology.
Mhm.
You go and you put a half a dozen diapers in the bag. Each diaper then has its own sensor?
No. So we don't want to tag every individual item because it just would not be cost effective to do that. So that bandwidth is stretched out to a 10 pamper maximum. And then as you go down, it'll let you know you're only at a 5 pamper width type thing. And with the wipes, because it can't measure, a sensor can't be against the wet wipes, plus they would dry out. It lets you know how many times you've accessed this pocket. So once you get to whatever you set it to, it would say you've accessed the pocket 20 times. Is it time for you to re-up your white pocket? Mm-hmm.
But does it require you to always have the same bag in relation to the measurement of the pockets? Or can it be set to any kind of bag?
So that's the thing, right? So what we see as our future is partnering with different bag companies. That's kind of the answer. So it will be customized for that particular situation.
Right.
One I wouldn't call it pivot, but one thing that we had considered is literally putting on the market an insert such that you can put in any bag this kind of solution, this kind of smart pocket solution, such that you can make any bag a Baggio bag, at least going forward. But ultimately, what we want to do is partner with various companies, and the solution will be really customized for the different size pockets in the particular bag.
Okay, so you've got the technology, it's patented, you've got a prototype. What kind of proof of concept, what kind of market acceptance have you found or have you begun to explore with what you're doing?
So we did 2 different things. We did an online campaign with,
Survey Monkey.
no, not that,
Oh,
but
Indiegogo.
Indiegogo, yes.
Yeah.
That's the online funding. So we did that, and we sold a limited number of bags, but we proved the concept more so with our online Survey Monkey.
Right.
And we surveyed a lot of people.
Yeah, upwards
I'm sorry.
400 or folks that we did with Survey Monkey. We held literally in this room two
Right,
focus groups
exactly.
with
We talked to real moms of real babies with real diaper bags.
that we didn't know.
Yeah.
That were and got really positive feedback. Nearly about 83 to 85% of our Survey Monkeys folks said that they would purchase, and at the price point that we were exploring at the time. But everyone seemed to be extremely interested, and we got a lot of interest about putting it in, from a consumer side, backpacks and briefcases. So.
And another thing we learned from the survey, as well as the focus groups, was that, it was kind of embarrassing. We missed an opportunity to see the wedding, that type of thing. It was no major issue, but there are people that have inhalers, that have EpiPens, that have found themselves without these things, oxygen machines, these type of things that people need to live. And it's much more than just an inconvenience, and this would help them greatly.
And I don't want to gloss over the Indiegogo campaign. We ran the Indiegogo campaign kind of incorrectly, so we did.
Yeah. We learned lessons.
We got about 20 to 25 pre-orders, and we raised probably $6,000 to $7,000. But one thing we learned is that you don't want to set your goal overly high. You actually want to set your goal low and hit that on day one, and then there's a lot of smoke and mirrors to those campaigns. Let me just let you know that. But But that being said, we have gotten great feedback on the concept, and most recently, we've been talking to commercial users, whether or not it's, Michael and AJ Michaels and Sons or Lynn the Plumber, just various service type oriented companies who have seen like a great need for this for inventory management, tool management. We've had, this idea kind of came to us as we have an electrician who has left on numerous occasions things at our house, as well as the plumber, et cetera, et cetera. So we really think that we can build out more of a customized solution for those types of service
Commercial,
companies.
yeah.
And we're really excited about that.
Mhm.
That's something I was talking about. We have a home improvement app, and it was I love the idea of the insert, because my wife carried a diaper bag, which she bought a designer big purse, which I didn't want to carry around.
Right.
So I would move all the stuff over to a backpack when I had kids. I had three. So the insert, I think, is a great idea. Do you guys have the ability to, instead of having the insert, have tags? Some sort of, because I don't like tile. Tile's expensive.
It is.
Last time I looked at it, I haven't looked at it in a while. But then I started thinking about home improvement. And, okay, today I'm working on, hanging a TV. Is there a way I could say, I need a TV, and you could, I could punch in the information, and then the program tells me what I should be putting in my toolbox in the morning, and make sure I have it. And even tell me if I have enough screws, because that's something that you can weigh.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then having that ability to go with that. Or also, I do venture sports from time to time, and it's like, before I go camping. You know how many
really
times
want-
I like pack and
You
unpack
are
my bag?
our target market.
Yeah, but
We're looking for people with
It's like,
REI.
how many times you're packing your bag, you're getting ready to go camping for 7 days, it's like, did I pack the burner?
Right.
I don't remember, and you
Exactly.
unpack and pack.
The rain
Do I
fly.
have enough gas?
The
or-
rain fly.
The
Yeah.
what?
The rain fly.
The rain fly, that's always important, you always forget that
Yep.
Or
when
if
it
you're going
rains.
off on a photo shoot.
Yeah,
So, both very interesting. I consider the photo stuff a little bit more consumer-like because you literally buy those bags like in Best Buy. But we really see and have kind of researched the companies as a possible strategic partnership with those kind of companies where you are carrying just gear, right, in your normal job. And as it relates to your question about can we send
Tag.
information, well, we don't want to necessarily tag the things because, quite frankly, that kind of runs us into what other folks are doing. But I do think what our kind of strategic advantage, I think, is that we can figure out what you have in your bag, what you have on your truck, and send you information every morning. So send you, hey, you're low on screws,
Right.
and you're an installer for a TV. Make sure that whoever is responsible for kind of re-upping the trucks or whatever the case may be is actually notified of that. So we can do that, and we're actually excited about that. So that was interesting.
Are the, I still want to make sure I understand. So are the pockets programmable by the end user, or do they come pre-programmed for different types of measurements?
I would say it is programmed by the end user. And I think what we are trying to do, what we would try to get to, first of all, we don't want to be bag manufacturers, but in order to kind of get our name out there, we would like to have different inserts. So it would be like a baby bag insert versus a laptop bag insert versus a, give me an example, the REI type bag, camping type bag. So we would make, and a book bag, we would make several different kinds of inserts that would be generally suited to that type of bag. And then you would tell it what the pockets are, but in the laptop bag, it would look a little different. The pockets will look a little different to make sure you have your charger, the laptop, your iPad.
So, and from a technical perspective, Tanika's absolutely right. Right now, Gen 1, yeah, it would be, the pockets would do what they do, whether or not they would be kind of analog like this, where we're normalizing literally electric resistive signal and sending it to your phone and letting you know. Basically, we kind of, our special sauce, we take that and we do some special calculations and tell you how many things are in the pocket based on that. But we do see a world, we do envision kind of a future a trajectory where you can just put something in your pocket and we can figure it out. Like that technology exists on some of your phones where you can take a picture of something right now and it can figure out what it is. So
Exactly. And where to buy
as
it.
those,
Yeah.
as that becomes a little
Yeah.
bit more competitive from a price perspective, we can incorporate that.
Mhm. Oh, I'm sorry.
Because they're the first.
I'm sorry.
I remember from the MyGov that I was really excited about
Yes.
the idea. And what I'm about to ask you is not something I normally think about, but since I met you last month, I've been in 2 conversations with people that scare the ding dong out of me. Number one is the technology that's been developed that enables people to walk past you and pull your credit card information off the stripe.
Yep.
The other one is, and this may seem wildly not to fit the conversation, but there's now a technology where people can get into your car if you lock it with the fob instead of locking it with the key. If you lock it with the key, with many cars like Toyotas, you cannot break into it with this technology. But if you lock it with the fob, then somebody that's nearby can. So my question is, if people start carrying things more valuable than diapers, let's say an iPad or something like that, and people are going to be able, can they, what is the security of the insert in terms of people not being able to identify without stealing your bag, and identifying what's in it, and then figuring out, well, gee, maybe I'm going to grab it or something.
So
This is so out of character for me, I'm embarrassed even.
No, it's a great question. I mean, as a first pass, we would rely on the security of your phone, right? We are an add-on at the end of the day of your phone. So, I guess our app in the first instance will be as secure as your phone is, and whether or not you're taking the appropriate measures as it relates to Wi-Fi access or et cetera, et cetera. But beyond that, I mean, that's something that we can think about. We haven't thought about it at this point.
All right, question. You did the Indiegogo campaign.
Yep.
You got 25 plus or minus pre-orders.
Mhm.
Have you filled those orders?
No.
No. We have a strong following, and we keep in contact with them as
Yes.
to where we are.
Okay.
Right.
Where are you?
Well, I think there's a little bit of between them.
Okay, please.
Other traction that we have gotten is that we applied for and was actually selected as one of 6 companies in the Accelerate Baltimore competition out of the ETC Baltimore back in 2015, which that as well as kind of our own kind of bootstrap money has allowed us to build a prototype. So we've done that, and since then we have constantly been looking for capital. We feel like
Well,
we're. Go ahead.
Well, one major thing that we've done is we have an LOI now. Here's a special thing about our LOI that's not yet signed. However, we are in strong negotiations with Diaper Dude, and Diaper Dude is the preeminent diaper bag for men. They have a global presence, and we happen to get hooked up with Chris through, he's like an old boyfriend of somebody here at MCE. How lucky can we be? But anyway, Chris, the president and founder of the company, he and we have been talking, and they're very excited about Baggio, but I think they're a little nervous about being first. And but we have generated this LOI. We are still in negotiations. We're still in talks. And we've been to New York once and to California twice. Manufacture our bags. We need to be able to bring,
To iterate our technology.
right, to get it to a market-worthy technology.
And
This
we-
is a prototype.
Yeah, we're looking to bring on, I mean, we have a strategic tech partner right now who has built, under our guidance, has built our prototype and
And the app.
developed
Yeah.
app. But we would like to bring on more of a full-time or semi-full-time tech person.
Yeah.
And also, we need to iterate and bring it to a commercial-worthy
Right.
standpoint, so.
The Diaper Dude thing sounds like a great path to follow. in terms of, instead of a broad-based, fit any bag and have a message to a wide audience, start with a product that, I mean, all of us who've ever had children, we've got 2 strikes on us. The guy's got 2 strikes on us when you're going out with the kid, to the mall or whatever, and you're in charge of picking up the bag. We got 2 strikes because that bag better be full. I can see the commercial, but the point I'm making is that if you can establish a beachhead with one target market, men, diaper dude has got to be onto something. One target market that starts to get some play, and then it creeps into Amazon, and then, their bag creeps into Amazon with your technology, and then it creeps into Walmart or wherever the hell it's going to be sold. Then you're going to start making money. Is Diaper Dude got funded to make the bags?
Oh, no. Diaper Dude is
Multinational, yeah,
big.
they're pretty big.
They're not a small company.
But again, I think they are just a bit nervous about being first
Right.
with it.
They're
They're
not.
super excited about it, but
And it's a competitive advantage for them to kind of be first in terms of.
Ask them how they overcame the same resistance they got from people that they wanted to sell it to beginning, because you're in exactly the same spot they had to be when they started.
right.
Right.
So come on, guys, wake up. I don't mean you, I mean them.
And
What,
go ahead.
what about if you reversed it with Diaper Dude? If they're hesitant on it, what if you bought their bags and put your technology in their bags and act as a reseller for their bag, like a custom version of the Diaper Dude?
I think it's possible. I think that they would be a little, if I were Diaper Dude, my concerns, and I always try to look at it just as an attorney, I try to look at the other side of the table, is why would you want your bag out there, because it would be under a Diaper Dude moniker probably.
Mhm.
Why would you want your product out there that with something that you may or may not approve in terms of its quality, right? So there's
Get him to approve it.
some,
And he's got a great idea. Would you let us sell 1,000 bags? Would you let us 500
we don't have the
bags?
capacity to fill 1,000 bag order just
Yeah,
yet, but.
but-
If you had,
Would you let
if
us
you had
sell
the Diaper
it?
Dude, I'm just,
Yeah, right.
and if they turn the tables, well, you may be cannibalizing our sales.
Right.
Well, then go ahead and buy my product, sort of like, well, let's go back around the table here and sign
Right.
that LOI, come on,
Right.
and give us some money.
Right, right. I'm absolutely, I'm not sure if they, in fact, I know that they would not approve us just selling without their plans. they'd sent us like really detailed plans in terms of their bags, so they're really big into quality, so they really would like to approve that kind of thing. But I do agree with you, that might be
Okay,
an angle.
we gotta get this
Okay.
question.
Actually, my question actually is going to piggyback on what Paul initially said initially, and it stole a little bit of my thunder, but that's okay. But anyways, I think it leads into it very well. You mentioned security,
Yep.
basically whether it's privacy or security. I have a comment, but I want to ask you real quick. You said you currently use Bluetooth as a communicator between the tag, between the bag and the phone, correct?
Bluetooth and a little Wi-Fi, but
Okay.
mostly Bluetooth.
What is the security protocol for the transfer of information? Is the information encrypted or is it plain text?
It is not encrypted.
Okay.
This prototype is not encrypted.
Okay, no, yeah.
That being said, for a commercial version, we would certainly seek to encrypt it. Yeah.
The reason why I asked, because I think if you were to look at the security rate, I think there's definitely something there, because right now, I'm trying to remember exactly where I read the study. I just read this literally a few days ago. When it comes to a recent study done about all IoT devices, this basically would amount to an IoT device. Of all IoT devices that are out there, there was one aspect of the study that focused on home automation. And what's the biggest detractor from people adopting home automation? And almost every single person across the board, for both home automation and for individual devices said security was the number one concern. And unfortunately, there's way too many devices that are out there right now. My Fitbit in particular, that does not put a premium on security. And it's almost like the studies that we're seeing right now are just begging for somebody to come out and say, oh, here's how we encrypt the information from this device to your phone. And in many respects, it's almost like, it seems to me like there's the consumer or someone in the market who maybe not, they don't want to go first, but somebody saying, who's going to be the first one to really say, we're making security a premium? And because I think your idea is fantastic. I also want to say, I love the idea that you're only doing one bag at a time. I think that's just from a secure startup perspective, you're not going too big, you're focusing on one area. I think it's awesome. But the security component there was strong as well. And you're able to go forward to the world and say, oh yeah, we have some of the best IoT security that currently exists that's out there. Because at this point right now, if you were to do even just baseline minimal security that you would have for an app, you'd be leaps and bounds ahead of most IoT devices out there.
The company that spoke at the last thing was the IoT security.
Right, maybe you can hook us up with
Yeah.
that.
Critique Atomic Mold.
Yeah.
I will.
It's
I'll be more than happy
exactly-
to. As a matter of fact, I'll make a note of that.
I have two questions.
Sure.
One, a little bit more on the security. The information about what should be in the bag or how it's sensing the data, the metadata, all that, is it stored in the phone or is it on a cloud server?
Well, that's two answers. Today, on the phone. And commercially, we want to own that data effectively because we think that we can leverage that data. So we want it to be stored in a cloud server likely, but something that we would be in control of. We think that we could, again, leverage how people are using the bag, what items are going in the bag, and we can, again, push notifications out to them from retailers, et cetera. There's tons of things we can do with that. So ultimately, we want you to say, agree to letting us help you out by agreeing to push your stuff up into our server.
Well, I'm sure you've thought well past that, and most people in the room have already begun to see, well, do I want data about my lifestyle, my habits, my purchases, do I want that in anybody's hands, and so forth and so on. There's a whole discussion there.
Right.
I'm sure you're working on it. The other question I have is,
We want you to click accept, but yeah.
Right, yeah, we just, otherwise we would just not click accept.
Right.
Yeah.
so the other question I have is, in a year or 2 years or whatever,
Uh-huh.
do you have a target price point for an insert? Like the one you're holding right now, could it be, what, $79.95, $19.95? Where is it gonna hit?
So,
When you get to stride?
So to do a full bag, our target price point is about $300, right? That's whatever. But to do an insert, and we think that we could do a full bag with kind of smart pockets, et cetera, et cetera. We think that costs, at least until we bring our costs down, that's probably going to cost us about $65 to $75.
It costs you that much
Cost
to
us
make
to
it.
do it.
Do you have any inkling of if you got a manufacturer in the best part of the world and make it as cheap as possible, how far down that could get?
Well, yeah. So that's another part of our issues, and it's a nice segue is manufacturing. So we have in our negotiations with Diaper Dude, one of the things, in addition to being kind of first with a startup, is manufacturing. That has been a huge hiccup. Traditionally, bag manufacturers make money because they don't make bags in the United States. They buy bags from China, basically. We have had some concerns, particularly prior to our patent actually issuing, and even quite frankly after our patent actually issues. It's not like Baggio is about to have some major patent litigation. We've had some concerns about letting our IP just go to China and we have no control over that process. So the answer to your question is yes, you can manufacture cheaper in China, which is probably the likely thing. I think for the first kind of go around, I think there's some good and reasonable reasons to not do so, at least until we get a bit of a presence. But ultimately, yeah, we find we want to be there. We want to manufacture the bag as cheap as possible going forward, but probably not for the first go round.
We did price that out a little bit with through Diaper Dude, and I about that.
Well, his
In
question
China.
was about the bag
About the
itself.
insert.
Right, but the point is, we had gotten it down to cheaper than it would be, and we were actually looking at a manufacturing firm in Mexico,
Right.
because that's a little bit closer, and
We can go touch it, feel it.
yeah.
Yeah.
To get the is there any secret sauce to get your sensor technology into the bags? Is it Is it embedded in the material? Is it sewn into the stitching? How do you integrate your technology?
So, again, we have this major discussion with Diaper Dude, so this is all we know so far. This is our universe so far. But they were gonna cut out or leave cutouts of where the sensors would go. So they would manufacture their bags, leave cutouts, then have, one of the ways we thought through it would be for them to then send it to a mutual manufacturer, which, the cost would just go through the roof. But to send it to a mutual manufacturer and they would insert, like a tech manufacturer, they would insert our technology and it would still go through their quality control and then it would be put on shelves. That was probably the cleanest way to do it. Another way would be for us to kind of sell Baggio packs.
Tech packs.
Yeah, tech packs, and we would send those to their manufacturer in China. Again, it would still be stitched in. It's sewn in so that you're not, the purpose of it
Okay.
being sewn in is you have wet diapers and things.
Right.
So you don't want to mess up the tech.
So what we had, to that point, what we had done is we exchanged literally like really sophisticated CAD drawings of what their bag would be and kind of what our tech would be and how they would kind of be married into each other. And it's certainly possible. You just start talking about FOBs and who owns what when and et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So that's an issue. And we actually thought of drop shipping the tech packs as a nice clean solution to we kind of get money immediately and blah, 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 and we just sell
And
it.
they do take the full control, quality control of the bag.
Right.
Okay. Now, for your technology, you've got your back end, which is your infrastructure, your
Right.
cloud, etc. You've got some programming. Your sensors, are they something that is on the market today that you're just using in a unique and different way, or is your sensor literally going to have to be manufactured by, who knows, an Intel, a Qualcomm, a chip maker, a sensor maker?
We're commercial off the shelf.
Okay.
We're commercial
Okay.
off the shelf. I mean, we integrate different technologies together that is not being done today.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's
So,
Yeah.
okay, and the point I'm making is you don't have to then get over the other hurdle, the next hurdle, which is having a sensor specifically
Right.
designed
Right.
and made for you.
Right.
Okay,
not today. I mean, maybe at some
Right.
point, but not today.
okay.
So, that makes me, are they durable? How long do they last? Are they flexible? Are they hard? Can they break?
So the sensors are very durable, and in fact, another part of our discussions in manufacturers, not only with Dr. D, but just in general, we've actually called manufacturers ourselves, is basically housing the sensors in not only a durable, kind of more ruggedized plastic piece to kind of make sure that they can withstand kind of shock and that kind of thing, but also making it kind of waterproof. So, or water resistant. Waterproof is a different thing. If you dunk your Baggio bag in a pool for 10 minutes, it probably is going to break.
It's going to stop.
But there are ways, and we've kind of looked at kind of specific stitching techniques and I don't want to say PVC, but kind of flexible plastic pieces that we would house our kind of smarts inside to kind of keep this durable.
And how big are they?
The sensors are really small.
Really small.
It's really small. I mean, it's the stitching inside of here that we're sensing.
Okay. So that was sort of the side question. So what kind of business model are you pursuing? Do you want, using Diaper Dude as an example, Diaper Dude with Baggio technology and being advertised as such? Are you looking, when you first sat down, so we don't want to be a bag manufacturer, but now it sounds like you're thinking about that. Are you willing to license the technology to anybody for them to use without your name at all? Or is this you to manufacturers? Is this you to consumers? I'm wondering what's your ideal model? What model are you after?
Ideally, we want to license. So we want it to essentially say diaper dude powered by Baggio. I think I may have borrowed that powered by from somebody, but.
Well, so when I say license, I mean no Baggio. Just diaper,
Details,
the genius diaper dude with technology, so yeah, we'll use it, but we don't want to, we just want to use it without.
I mean, it may not be a co-brand, I mean, ideally, we would like to be co-branded.
Right.
Um, But, I mean, that is not a deal stopper by any
Right.
chance. And so to answer your question in terms of, ultimately, the business model is a licensing model, and we want to win in one vertical market and then use that to leverage that to go to the second vertical market. We want to win in 2 vertical markets and use that to do 4. And so that's definitely what we see. We do think that it may be helpful to sell a small quantity, put something on an actual shelf that is a Baggio branded bag initially, just to get a market presence and show that
To prove the
it
concept.
works.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we're licensing
Right.
company.
I just realized actually, I think what you guys are trying to do, I would love to see your sensors married up with a product like Raiden, for example. I don't know if you've ever heard of Raiden before. It's smart luggage. And what it does is actually, it looks like just regular luggage, but it actually has a battery in it, so that way when you charge the battery, you can plug your devices into it and charge it over time. And it also has sensors in it, so that way it can measure the weight, so that way when you are getting onto a plane, you know how much it's going to weigh before it gets to the terminal. But also, if your bag comes off, you can not only track the bag, where it's actually headed, but also you can find out, wait, my bag is 10 pounds lighter than it was when I got on board, what's going on. But the sensors they have in that suitcase are only suited for weight. It's specifically just suited to weigh the bag. And just kind of piggybacking off what you were saying, if it was a marrying up your technology with that, I can't help but think that would probably be one of the most smartest pieces of luggage you could possibly have. Not only will it tell you how much it weighs and where it is, but it'll actually tell you what's in it.
Right.
I think it'd be fantastic.
Which is, yeah, I mean, we
That's a
definitely.
long-term thing, though, long-term thing.
We see those competitors, soft competitors, because what's the other one? It's the blue bag.
Blue Smart.
Blue Smart is another one that is like kind of winning, right? And they don't have the content management aspect. So we think that we can do everything that they do, essentially, which is tell you where your bag is, which is pretty easy, and somewhat weight, although it doesn't quite work in a baby bag sense. Plus, we do the content management and send information out to you. So, but yeah, I mean, those guys show that there is a market for smart bags.
And I think what you're doing, though, is more advanced than what they're doing, because even though they're also making the suitcases themselves, which is a big manufacturing fee, but just measuring weight, though, is one thing, but to be able to measure contents, specific contents, they'll tell you where they're at, though. Are they a competitor? They sound like they would be a competitor, but it already sounds like that your baseline proposition here is already kind of a big step away ahead of what they're trying to do.
And if copying is the sincerest form of flattery, we have seen a recent Blue Smart ad that says, we'll tell you, what is it? We'll tell you if something's missing from your bag. Now, what they do is they put a smart, basically it's like putting a bag inside of a bag that lets you know if that's out of your bag through some sort of Bluetooth connection. It's not really a concept that we have, which is this kind of tell you exactly what's in the bag and kind of thing. But we're pretty sure that Blue Smart may have seen the Baggio commercial.
If you look at Intel, has made billions and billions of dollars by making chips and getting co-branded or sub-branded by IBM and Microsoft and everybody else. You have the power to make people that make high-quality bags differentiate themselves so greatly from their competition. If you focused on that strategy, then you don't have to get to worry about making bags. And
Right.
you can find the people that are already smart enough, like Diaper Dude, to make the investment to go ahead, and then you can piggyback on them by giving them a technology that makes them almost unassailable. And if they're unassailable, Warren Buffett will invest in them. Is that correct?
Any other thoughts, comments?
investment.
Anything that you guys would like to add in clothing? Or, yeah, clothing. Closing?
Nothing. We're really excited about the technology. Again, we really want to disrupt the bag market, right? Our final pitch is that we're not trying to create something new for a consumer to do, which I think a lot of tech these days is like creating something to create something because it can be done technically. What we're trying to do is really enhance a consumer's day-to-day life by not letting you forget anything. So, if anyone has any ideas or kind of connections, we're always looking for connections with bag manufacturers and looking for some money as well.
I think that's it. When you remember us, just remember how you can tell us to get funding. Try to remember.
So if anybody would like to follow up with them, see Corey or Tanika, immediately after the event, or contact me, and I'll put you in touch with them if you think that you can help them in some way. Okay?
Good.
Thank you both.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes. Come on up.
Hello.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce our fireside chat guest, Mr. Terry Schaeffer, founder and CEO of EasyAssociates. And you're looking good for having been stuck in traffic all evening.
Do you know how you plan to get here early? I left my office, which is in Bolton Hill, at 10 minutes of 5, 10 minutes of 4. Get here at 6:30. Albert Ellis used to say something about you can't get yourself upset about a lot of things you have no control over. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And so we did what we entrepreneurs do, and that's we pivoted and adjusted with the flow. So Terry and I have known each other, gosh, many, many years. And I've always, highly valued Terry's friendship. And he has developed a specialty. Just a little introduction about Terry, because we are going to be abbreviated tonight, but he works with, highly successful, adventuresome, fun-loving family business executives that have an insatiable appetite to grow personally, professionally, and financially. And Terry practices several principles that resonate with me on multiple levels. One of them is, and they're not proprietary, they're not unique, they're age-old, but they're all about focus, clarity, and singleness of purpose. And that's one of the things that I wanted us to talk about tonight, particularly in terms of the fact that we have a husband and wife team here, Baggio, because being a husband and wife or being in a family-run or an owned business has its own unique set of dynamics over and above being a young startup, etc. But exploring that kind of thing and exploring Terry's lessons that he's learned from his years of working with hundreds of business owners and executives in the private family-owned business space. So Terry, welcome.
Thank you.
Take us back to the beginning.
So, first of all, I want to tell you a little story. What was it, 15 years ago we met, somewhere around 2019. Paul and I met through another coach friend of ours. And we started really discussing what do CEOs want? And they want clarity, they want camaraderie, they want relationships. And being at the top or moving something along sometimes is a very lonely little venture. You've been there. We've been there. Everybody in this room's been in that. And so what I've really found in working with almost 8 different family businesses as a non-family member, things get murky. There are boundaries that don't get really fulfilled. Talents aren't really looked at. Things don't progress in a way that really makes some sense. And it wasn't until between company number 5 and 6 did I work for a company, I worked for the VA Medical Center right out of social work school. I thought I wanted to be a therapist, but that got kabooshed really quickly. But what was really interesting was I found how a very interdisciplinary team approach to thinking gave a structure that people could really be very independent and very interdependent in a multidimensional type of way. And so when I started recognizing that, I was sitting there going, wait a second. You spent 25 years in the business world and you've seen how this interdisciplinary team is able to interact because they all come, they look at the elephant in a completely different way, and having discussions around that all of a sudden changed the dynamics on how you work together. And so I've taken a very simple little methodology and I've brought it into family businesses that want to listen to this. And those are the people that I find that have that insatiable appetite to want to grow. And how they want to grow is different from each family. And each family has a different way of looking at it. So that's it in a nutshell. And it's just been rolling along and rolling along and rolling along.
Now, you started in the corporate world, if I'm not mistaken. You, got-
15 years in the corporate world,
okay,
8 years in the mental health arena, 6 years in the not-for-profit. I like calling it more about around the for-purpose genre, because they really have a purpose, but basic business acumens, basic business standards can be used in building a really healthy nonprofit, and a lot of them don't. So there's an area there too. And then I'm back out on my own for almost 20 years.
okay.
It'll be 20 years in this minute. Yeah.
So you got your BS and your BA from Babson College. You got your master's certificate in substance abuse and addictions counseling from Loyola. You got a co-master's from the University of Maryland, Baltimore in social work, correct?
Yep.
And then you did your master's work in applied behavioral sciences at Johns Hopkins Carey School.
And I had a really tough time going to school when I was younger. 2 years after finishing that last master's, I finally figured it out. I had adult ADD. I couldn't look at things, I had to pattern things. I had to put patterns into place. It was a rude awakening. It was like 45 years of age, and all of a sudden I'm being diagnosed with something that most kids are being diagnosed with now. And that's when I realized the entrepreneurial spirit inside of me was partly because I had to manipulate my environment to get the results that I was looking for.
Talk a little bit more about that. Manipulating
Well,
the environment.
Maybe it was more influencing instead of manipulating. I'll take the word manipulating out. But influencing, when I look back at my education and having a hard time being able to retain things and be able to process certain things, when the psychologist I was working with said to me, remember you need 3 things to keep yourself on an even keel. I don't know anybody else that's been diagnosed with this stuff, but we all have certain things that are path of least resistance. And it's the things that we'll gravitate towards and the things we'll stay away from. And he said the things you have to gravitate towards is getting enough, the same amount of sleep every night. You need to start to use color coding on everything you do. So in my books, I go 4. Now I'm now to 5. Red, green, yellow, orange means it's dead, and blue. And so different themes in a book will come up with different colors. And so I recognize how I've done it in looking at books and remembering them. So what I was doing was influencing how I was absorbing information. And once I realized that, all of a sudden things became a lot easier for me to manage.
Okay,
And
so.
that's why I wanted to go back and become a therapist, but after playing in the therapy role of trying to fix things from the past, I said, no, I'd rather become a coach to help people look into the future.
Okay. So take what you learned about yourself,
Yeah.
adult ADD, and apply that to examples of clients that you're working with right now who you see may have similar issues. What do you do with him? What's your process that enables you to help them get focused, get clarity, and take that clarity to a level where you've got the family dynamics under control as well as the non-family dynamics under control?
You know, well, you've got a couple of variables sitting in there at the same
Mhm.
time. So part of it is along the lines of really seeing where their motivation happens to be. Before I talk to anybody, I believe that people, and this is not an advertisement, but this is really along the lines, people are our biggest assets and they can be the biggest asses. Okay? And we've all been in situations where there are people that stop us cold on doing certain things because of some kind of conditioning. Most of the family businesses that are out there now are really looking for ways of expanding. But I need to find out what kind of commitment are they willing to make to start to do things differently that, as Marshall Goldsmith says in his book, and what got you here, let's say from 0 to $8 million, is not going to get you from $8 million to $64 million in revenue. You're going to have different systems to manage that. You're going to have different people with different talents that complement each other. You're going to need a different structure on how information gets back to the front office. And the owner has to be willing to step aside and say, maybe somebody else needs to run this thing. Maybe I need to just be a really good owner and be able to do what I do and have somebody else be able to spearhead the business to go forward. And that's probably the toughest thing that we kind of run into, is how do you talk an owner out of something that they've been so well entrenched in doing and moving them forward. And that takes some time, that takes some finesse, and it also goes to what is his or her core all about, and what do they value in it. Core includes values, purpose, vision, strengths, weaknesses, all the things you can think of, and some that come up in just the discussions. So it's really getting them very clear on their core first, and that's my first element. Say, let's get really clear on what business you're in and where you see it going, where the trends are going to take you out there. And then we'll set up the second part of taking the leadership team to that and then pulling everybody else behind.
Now, embedded in what I just heard you say is a strong undercurrent of honesty. Not only, well, honesty on multiple levels, but the most important is honesty within the individual who's got the situation. If they're not honest with themselves, it almost seems like no matter what, you or anybody as a coach, an advisor, whatever, nothing that you do is going to fix that situation until they get honest. What tools, techniques, and what lessons have you learned into how to be honest with oneself, and how do you get people to recognize that they're not being honest with themselves? Or can you?
I'm gonna start with you can't make them do anything that they don't want to do. But when you start to have a conversation around what is it that you really, really envision this business being 5, 10 years out down the road, what is it? Let's take it down. So we're at 27. We're all 10 years older, and we've looked back over the last 10 years. What do you see, where do you see the business being, where do you see the family being, where do you see you being, where do you see your interests being? All these variables, and we'll just put them up on a great big whiteboard, and then say, how did they all come together on setting up very defined priorities to take you down that path? Now, that path might not be linear, it might have a lot of swirls in it, but it'll be a path that gives you the idea of where you want to go and how you want to go. And it was interesting. Last week, Jane Pauley spoke at the Baltimore Speaker Series, and one of the things about her new book is she said, I'm 67 years of age, and I'm starting to look at where do I want to be at 70, where do I want to be at 77. Where do I want to be at 87, and where do I want to be at 97? And I'm sitting there going, I want to be alive, and I want to be healthy. Okay, so those are some of the things that you could do. But one of the things she said is, when we start to think out that way, and we start to look out that way, and then back it back, and this happens within families, all of a sudden there's a path that starts to emerge. There are elements that start to unfold, because you're letting their imagination start to innovate where they're going. Now, the people that have problems not answering that might not be a good client for you. Or might not be a good client for anybody, because they want just to stay status quo. And that's cool, it's fun. But that's not a good client for one that wants to take their business to the next highest level. Now, this also talks about the next generation as well. In 20 years, somebody might be in his or her 20s or 30s now, starting a business, and the family coming through it and stuff along those lines. Where do they want to be in their 50s, and how have they prepared that next generation to be able to have a very strong foundation, working foundation, with systems in the place that really honor where the business is going. So the business has a voice of itself. And we back away that the platform is strong enough to put any kind of product, service, or technology on it and be able to keep on running. And it's very people-oriented. It's about keeping the people occupied and interested in what they're doing.
Do you find a lot of family-owned and run businesses that have the wrong people in the wrong spots at the wrong times?
Yeah, that's the tough one. Uncle Joe, who's been running the books but doing a really not a good job at it. Yeah. But those are the companies that are usually between something like $500,000 and about $4.5 million, and they're really lifestyle businesses.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna go but they still have the same obligation to possibly get the next generation who might want to take it over onto a platform to help them do the right thing. So my philosophy is, if we can let men and women start to really understand where their talents lie and how to use them really well, and surround themselves with really competent people that delegate very nicely and stuff along those lines, all of a sudden we've got a chance of really setting up a platform to where the family starts to communicate differently, going back to that interdisciplinary process, and be able to have some conversations that are not fraught with family dynamics.
There are several things that I'm hearing here.
Yeah. probably on.
One is obviously clarity. Getting incredibly clear, which in my vernacular, and a corollary to that might be focus. A second one, as we just talked about, is honesty. Not only being honest with oneself enough to cut through the bull, but also being honest with others to the point of being able to help foster good, healthy family dynamics. But the third that I'm hearing here is the principle of being vulnerable. Being willing to admit that as entrepreneurs, we are just the same flawed, as I like to say, bozos on the bus of life. We just happen to be doing some things that are pretty phenomenal. But it's being willing to admit and be open to change. And to me, it seems like without any of those three, none of those three is going to happen. Am I?
Yeah, I think they're probably, those are the three main pillars there. But I bet you there's some secondary ones as well that are family and business focused. I mean, but I think that vulnerability and willing to try something new or to be open to something new, especially in this day and age where in the last 10 years, just look at what's happened. This thing right here changed, it was a game changer. Does anybody remember the telephone numbers or the patterns? That's how I remember. With my ADD, that's the only way I could remember people's telephone numbers was with patterns on a push button phone. And you had to stand there. You couldn't walk around. I was bored was always so long. These things were the game changer. What's going to be the game changer in the next 10 years? What about the next 20 years? And that's the thing where you have to be vulnerable. I was talking to a father and son team who have two businesses going. One is a retail shop for automobiles, let's put it that way. And they have done, the father had inherited the business from his father. And the son, there was one son that was already in the business, another son that was coming in, and I said, do you have a training program to send your kids through? He goes, no, why? I said, I didn't go through it. Because in 25 years, the world's changed. And you've got two businesses. One that's a cash machine, like an ATM machine, and the other one's an asset base that's got a capital gains number on it, and it's going to take Fort Knox to be able to break it. And when he looked at me and he goes, I had never thought about it that way, I said, well, that's the way I'm hearing you say it. Because one's a little cash machine based on, and his biggest threat is weather. And it's also his biggest determinator. I mean, when they have a snowstorm, it's all of a sudden this thing's got, their revenues just jumped. But the other part is this stabilized set of assets that have appreciated in value, and how do you get out of those without paying a big tax liability? And so the son didn't understand about that part, but he understood about how to create more revenues over on the production side. So it's part of that stuff that we're constantly talking, I'm constantly talking to people about. And what are the trends going on in the markets that you serve? And how can you be on top of the wave that's propelling the ship forward? So that's the vulnerability part.
Given your extensive history in working with successful and probably unsuccessful business owners.
And a couple of those too.
Okay. Give us a sense, what would you say would be the top 4 or 5 or 6 lessons that you have learned from your work with your clients that would be of benefit to this community in terms of how they're looking at either a current venture or possibly a future venture, that they could begin applying now so that they don't make the same mistakes that you've seen it made in the past?
Well, I'm going to go back to one of the programs I'm attached with is Vern Harnish wrote a book called Mastering the Rockefeller Habits 12 years ago. And he just brought out a new one on scaling up. It's Mastering the Rockefeller Habits 2.0. But one of the core values within the Gazelles program is never, ever, ever give up. Okay? If you're passionate about something and really focused on that passion, stay with it. Something's going to show up that's going to take that to the next highest level. On the second part of a core value is question everything. Look at that elephant from a multiple different way. Really look at it. The father and son team. Until we finished that conversation, the father turned to me and says, "I had never thought about it in that sense." And I'm sitting there going, "That's the way you described it to me. All I'm doing is feeding it back. Is this what the kind of business that can take your sons out 25 to 30 years?" He said, "You know what? I'm going to need to talk to my accountant and my lawyer." And I said, possibly start asking yourself, what is it that's going to make me happy on taking some of those hard assets and divesting in some ways, but moving it in different ways? That's the biggest question you have to ask there. So there's the question. Be open to change. The whole world is changing. I mean, I just said it, like in the last 10 years, this whole thing has changed our lives. And so be open to that change. That's true, right? Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do 6 if you have
No.
20, 30, 40, 50, that's fine.
No. I'm just trying to pull some synapses up. I think the best thing I ever heard was from a woman who I grew up with. My parents divorced at a very young age, and I have a couple of stepsisters. One that I met who's in the coaching business. And part of it is about, Madeline always said to me, when we were talking, she goes, you always have to have a sounding board that looks at things in multiple different ways and has different kind of connotation, or have different ways of describing what's really going on. So having that sounding board, or having a board of advisors, or a coach, a couple coaches, that's really there to kind of undo what's already been done and say, how can we make this into a bigger and better thing? Okay. So having that group of people. And one of my clients now, one of their core values is continue to have fun. When you stop having fun, it's time to get out of the business. Find time to go find something new. And fun is one of their values. If they're not having fun doing what they're doing, they're out of it. So that's fun.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Question?
Questions?
Yes, sir.
As a coach, you always have wins and losses. What was your biggest loss? What was your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it?
One of the tools in the toolbox is Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team. And after I had been working with a leadership team for about a month and a half, I suspected that it would be a good time to see how cohesive the team really had. And they also had a leadership team of about 5 or 6 people, a management team of about 18, and a staff of about another 23. So I have a very simple Survey Monkey that takes everything that Patrick Lencioni did, the 15 questions he does, no different than what they have in the back of the book. I put it on a Survey Monkey, I sent it out, and we sent it out to each one of the members of respective areas of their responsibilities. Leadership team was about 1.5 points over the managers, and the managers were maybe 1.5 points over the staff, about 0.5 point over the staff. Their bottom line was there was major dysfunction going on that the leadership team did not know about. They were not seeing it, and they didn't like the results. I was the messenger. So it happens. They wanted to do certain things, but they couldn't get out of their own way. And I told them, this is where we're running into problems. And until we address some of the dysfunctions that we're talking about, that Patrick Valenciani puts out, the biggest one was being accountable to each other. There was a lot of finger pointing going on. And I'm not just talking with four fingers. There were other hand gestures that we all know about. And that wasn't helping. Also, the owner needed to find somebody to run the day-to-day activities. He needed to be an owner, and he needed to set the policy and the vision and get that going. But he really needed somebody to run the day-to-day, and that was the problem. And I see when companies get to about 22 employees, about $8 to $10 million in revenues, all of a sudden something changes. The dynamics change. And they were trying to do things the old-fashioned way, and it just wasn't getting there. So I was thrown under the bus. I walked away with feeling that should I have done something different. And I remember talking to my own coach, and he looked at me and he said, how long are you going to stay before you started getting, and he was telling me that I was coming to some of the sessions complaining, and he reminded me that this might not have been the best client for you. You were charged by the challenge, but you weren't allowed to let the challenge really move forward. And then I have one client right now that they're really starting to really move nicely ahead, very nicely ahead. They've done some very nice work, and now they're starting to reap the rewards of their labors. Other questions?
We'll answer everybody's question.
It's not really a question, but I'm very interested. You seem to have sort of mapped the dynamics of companies at certain revenue levels. Could you go through just the basics up to whatever amount?
I find that I'm more comfortable with the companies that are 15 employees, $5 million in revenues, up to about 50 million, 100 employees. It feels like a sweet spot for me.
And so there must be a commonality of challenges and opportunities there that you're very comfortable with.
Yeah, and there are, and it's just like developmental stages for people. Businesses have the same thing. And when they get to about 20, 25 million, something like that, there's another major redo. But if you can do it right when they're 10 to 12, you can skip that over and they can go right to about 75 to 100 million without a major problem. And most owners, CEOs at that time recognize they don't have the skill sets to take it to that.
Around 25.
They might be in their early 50s at that time, and they're not saying, you know what, I think I need to really find somebody. Bill Gates did with Steve Ballmer. I need to have somebody be able to take over for me because I'm starting to get bored and I want to go do something else. And most entrepreneurs have that kind of mindset, and they want to do other things with their lives, but they've got this other entity that they've been responsible for. How do I pass that along to somebody? Now, when Bill Gates did it, he did it in billions, when Microsoft was getting to the billion, but, you know, in the billions. But that's, it's the same concept. And sometimes having that conversation with the patriarch, matriarch, you know, second generation, third generation, what is it that you really want this to look like? And so I come in with a lot of questions. Matter of fact, most people say, I feel like I'm being interrogated. I'm saying, no, I'm trying to figure out where you want to go. And then let's set out, look at a plan, and this is what, let's do it in modules. And as we do the modules, you'll start to see other things that you might want to add to the next module and then address. It's kind of a simple little process. It works for me. So, yes, sir.
Sure. If the goal is to pass the family business to the next generation, does your coaching change as opposed to if that goal is not necessarily kind of explained to you from the owner of the company? If there is not this kind of second generational kind of goal in mind, and if so, what are the curated kind of distilled down? What do you say to those folks that are seeking to pass the company to the next generation?
Well, when I was running peer advisory groups with Mr. Ricks in the back for 10 years, one of the things that I really took in from him was, are we getting this company ready for sale, or are we getting it, or what are we doing? And I like that whole concept around, let's build it in such a way that it's indifferent on whether you stay or go.
Good.
Okay? So I really kind of go in on that premise and say, let's just get this thing really moving really nicely, so you can decide on, okay, you want to go to Tahiti for 3 months? Go. And there were a couple of clients in Inner Circle that once they got the business really rolling, the group would tell them, say, you need to walk away from it and see what's broken when you come back and fix that, and then go from there. I run from the same premise. Let's go out, let's test some things, let's get things into place, pause. Now, let's test out how well it goes when you're not there managing the process. And then go into the next part. So I kind of really chunk it down so that it's manageable on their own part. Other questions?
One more question?
Yes.
So it seems like you made a pretty big pivot personally when you went from like a kind of a psychology thing to being a business coach. How did you make that decision, and how would you tell your clients, when is it time for them to move on?
I'll do the first part first. When I came out of undergraduate school, I worked for 3 companies, and they were all around turning things around. The first company was a company called Consolidated Fibers. I was with them for 5.5 years on 2 stints, and they would send me in. It was a consolidation of 43 paper stock companies around the country. So we were changing things around within their systems, and they were all family owned at one time. So I saw families from the inside out and outside in. Okay? And here's this little redheaded whippersnapper coming in saying we've got to do certain things and trying to change them. I couldn't understand what was missing. And at that time it was my naivete. So I kept doing that. I did that for 15 years, both in marketing and sales and internal operations. So the second part was when I went back to school after I sold a company of my own in the late 80s, early 90s, and went back to school and at that time, I really wanted to understand some family of origin stuff, and alcohol was very big in our house. And it was one of the driving forces that led me into going into social work, because I wanted to I thought I wanted to be a therapist. After a little bit of that, I realized, no, I really wanted to help go back and help business owners see what they can't see for themselves, help put a flashlight or put a light on some of the blind spots or choke points that they might not be able to see for themselves. Hence the 5 dysfunctions of the team. Sometimes the glare of that's really a laser beam of an ongoing training. So when they turn to me and they say, well, do you work by yourself? I said, yes, I work with myself, but I have a cadre of 220 other coaches that I can tap into, that we look at business acumen and business issues from multiple different dimensions in each one of those men and women. There are no 2 of us alike in this organization, this Gazelle's organization. And we keep up with building new systems, new tools to use with any kind of business. And I happen to be the family business guy. I have a friend, Ken Thiessen, who's an ordained minister. And all he works with is entrepreneurial nonprofits. That's all he does. And he's got a thriving business. So each one of us has a little specialty, and we kind of focus in on that.
Terry, thank you very much.
Sorry I was late. Traffic is just horrible. Thank you.
That's what we do. Thank you, Terry.
I've got 2 books in my satchel, and one of the things that I'm really looking at is helping owners really understand their people requirements really well. So if anybody would like to I have a handout, and I have 3 books, and if you like, give me a business card and I can follow up with it, I will raffle it off tonight if you got a hat. Got a hat someday?
Nope, didn't bring a hat, didn't bring a basket, didn't bring any of that stuff this time around.
Okay, good.
But you can see Terry and work out a deal with it.
Right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your flexibility. I hope that when you leave here, you leave a little more educated, a little bit more inspired, and a little bit more connected.